Hello everyone, Sky here. So for the last few weeks, we've been doing some tests using Zoom to record some productions, and it's been a lot of fun. And I just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned and that my team has learned. This is definitely not a definitive overview, but I think hopefully it'll give you some things to think about when you're producing your show and potentially using Zoom as a platform for recording your show. I'm going to start the session with a brief Zoom overview, talk a little bit about setting up an account, the interface, and configuring Zoom for recording. Then I'll talk a little bit about best practices, coming up with a pre-production plan, think about audio and video considerations, as well as choosing a good location with a good background that's not very distracting. Finally, I'll walk through my production process with an interview pilot that I did in Zoom a couple of weeks ago. I interviewed a current media arts fellow, Tanika Williams, and I thought it went pretty well. It wasn't perfect, but it was an interesting start to my production process in Zoom. So let's dive in and get started. So the first step is that you'll need to set up a new Zoom account. And you can do this by going to zoom.us. There are many different types of accounts. Today I'm going to be talking about the basic free account, but as you as you continue working with this, you may be interested in expanded functionality, so you can take a look at the pro and the business account for that. The basic account allows up to a 40-minute meeting for up to 3 participants. If it's just a one-on-one meeting, then there's unlimited time. You don't have a 40-minute cap. So it's something to think about in terms of how big of a production you might want. But the great thing about the basic account is that it still allows you to record your meetings to your computer. So once you've created an account and you've downloaded the Zoom app, that's really actually an important part of this. You'll need to download the Zoom app straight to your computer. You'll open it up and log in. And there's some things I want to point out when you first log in. First thing is your personal meeting ID. So you'll see here that this is kind of the home screen. And if I go to meetings, you'll see my personal meeting ID. This is a unique meeting that you can send to people if you want to do an on-the-fly meeting. Otherwise, you would schedule meetings based on the time and date of your show. So to schedule meetings, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Click on the meetings icon up here, and then you can click on this plus button, and it'll bring up this dialog box where you can fill out the details. Or from the home screen, click Schedule, and it brings up that same dialog box. So you'll fill out the topic, and the date and time that the meeting will take place. In this case, it would be April 24th from 4 to 5. You don't necessarily need to fill out a date and time if this is a reoccurring meeting. You can just click that box. In this case, we'll keep that open. Now, under meeting ID, you can either generate automatically or use your personal meeting ID. I'd recommend generating this automatically because that'll create a unique meeting ID every time you schedule a new meeting. You can also require a password for participants to enter as they join the meeting. You can have the host video on and participants video on as they join the meeting. And you can choose the type of audio that the meeting will be using, whether it be telephone, computer audio, or both telephone and computer audio. And then you can sync the meeting to a particular calendar like iCal, Google Calendar, Outlook, or other calendars. Then there's some advanced options here. You can enable a waiting room. You can allow participants to join before you. You can mute the participants on entry. Only authenticated users can join, um, and you can also automatically record the meeting. So once you have all of those details, you click schedule, and this particular meeting has now been scheduled for April 24th from 4 until 5. And you'll see that there's a join meeting link with a meeting ID and password. You can copy this invitation and add it to a calendar that you might have on your computer, like an Outlook calendar or a Google calendar. You can email it to whoever will be participating in your show, um, and this will all be stored in the meetings section of the Zoom interface. So there are a couple of ways to start a meeting. First, I'm going to show you how to start your scheduled meeting, and then I'll show you how to start an instant meeting with your personal meeting ID. To start a scheduled meeting, you go to the Zoom homepage here, and you just click Start, and that will open the meeting. You can also start a meeting just by clicking the New Meeting button, and this will start a new meeting with your personal meeting ID. So, for example, if I click here, Zoom will launch. Now, I want to show you a few things here. As part of the interface, you can see that I'm in my in-laws' basement here. In the upper left corner, you can see that there's a little eye with a green lock. This is the meeting ID, and you can copy the URL to the clipboard and email that to any participants. So this is basically an instant meeting, and so say I wanted to start a meeting and record something really quickly, I might copy this URL and email it to the people that I want to join. In the lower left, you'll see this little microphone that says mute. If I click it, I am now muted, and if there's anyone else in the meeting, they won't be able to hear me. There's also a stop video that just turns off my camera. The people can still hear me, but my camera is now off. And there are a bunch of other functions. Here's a security window. You can allow participants to do different things like share their screen, chat, rename themselves. You can also lock the meeting so no one else can join. Enable something called a waiting room, which allows you to see who wants to join, and you can admit them one by one. I don't have any other participants in this meeting, so you can see that I'm the only one in this room right now. If I had other people joining, then all of their names would appear here. And there are different functions you can do. You can mute them one by one. You can assign them to be a co-host or a host, which gives them more control over what's going on in the meeting. And I'll get into this a little bit more later. This is the record button. This is how you record your show. Something called reactions. I can give a thumbs up or a clap emoji. And then there's some other things like going live to Facebook, live on YouTube. There's something called breakout rooms and closed caption. All of these can be enabled in the back end on the Zoom website. Next thing I want to review are some audio and video settings. And then I'll finish this slide with talking a little bit about sharing your screen. So if you click on the little arrow next to the microphone, it gives you some options on the microphone and speaker. If I had an external microphone attached, then it would appear here. If I had a different speaker attached, it would appear here. For example, I have this headset. If I plug this in, now I can select the headset for the speaker and for the microphone. So since I have an external mic, it sounds a lot better. And there are also some settings on video. You can select a camera. If you have another webcam, like an external webcam, that'll appear here. You can also choose a virtual background. I might want to choose a virtual background. It's very cluttered in here. And then there are some more settings if I click on video settings. Do that now. Okay, so you can see here there are a lot of settings on the Zoom interface. General, it gives you, and I'm not going to go into detail of all of these settings. I'm just going to talk about the ones that I think are the most important. So you can go through and look at them and try them out and see how they change the interface and the different recordings. So for now, some settings I think are important. You want 16:9 widescreen. That forces a 16:9 aspect ratio. This camera on my computer actually is 16:9, but if I had an SD camera, it would show up as a 4:3. So you want that checked. You want to enable HD. Mirroring your video, it makes it a little easier for you to uh, when you're turning your head that it's like looking into a mirror instead of seeing what the camera actually sees, so you keep that checked. If I click on audio settings, you can see that you can test your speaker, see what the output volume is for your speaker. You can change the speaker as I did earlier on. You can also test your mic. Check, 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 1 2 1 2. Mic. Check, 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 1 2 1 2. Just to make sure your microphone sounds good. You can increase or decrease your input volume if needed. So this is all good to do before you start recording. Next, I want to show a few settings on sharing your screen. Enter full screen when participants share a screen. So if I were sharing a Google slideshow and I want everyone to see a full screen version, I would keep that checked. And then there's some other functionality on chat, virtual backgrounds. Next thing I want to show you is the recording settings. Here you can choose where you want to record your Zoom local recordings. And then there's some options like optimize for a third-party video editor. You can record video during screen sharing. You can place the video next to the screen, shared screen in the recording. Actually, I don't want that checked. I want to have my video over the shared screen. And then there's some other settings you can take a look at, like statistics, keyboard shortcuts, accessibility, subtitles. Okay, the last thing I want to show you in the Zoom interface is the share screen button down here. So if I click on shared screen, it gives you a lot of options for what you can share. So right now you can share an iPhone or iPad through AirPlay or through a cable. If you have any presentations, like I actually have the Zoom overview presentation going, I can share that. I can just share the desktop, which shares everything that's going on live in the desktop. There are a couple of checkboxes here. You want to share the computer sound, and if you're playing back any video clips for other people to see or to record, keep the optimize screen share for video clip box checked. So as you'll see, when I select that, you'll see that I have a little floating window, and all the controls have moved from the bottom of the window to the top. And there are some interesting features here, like I can annotate, like type text. I can draw, stamp, So there's a lot of things you can do with the screen sharing view, and I have some other videos that I'll show you just as I'm editing on what different views of the active speaker might look like. To stop the share, you just click Stop Share, and it brings you back to the Zoom meeting. I made a short video of a Zoom meeting where I had a couple of other people who joined. That's Jessica and Kieran. And right now we're in gallery view. If I change the speaker view, what will show up is whoever's actively speaking. So gallery view actually shows everyone who's in the meeting, equal size, and then whoever's talking will be highlighted in yellow. So before we get into actually recording your show, I just want to go over some account settings on the back end that I think are kind of important for you to look at on your Zoom account. So to get to the account settings, you actually go to the Zoom website, zoom.us, and /profile. If you're already signed in, it'll bring you to this page. And it's a typical profile page. You can change your picture. This is your personal meeting ID and the personal meeting link for instant meetings. Gives you all of your sign-in email. You can change your email and whatnot. You can go through all of these options: profile, meetings, webinars, recordings. But what I'd like to kind of focus on for this training is the settings option. And in settings, we have meetings, recording, and telephone. Now, there are a lot of settings here that you can turn on or turn off. And by default, some are turned on while others are turned off. So it would be good for you to kind of go in to your profile account and look at what's turned on and what's turned off. For example, when you're scheduling a meeting and you're starting the meeting, like maybe you want the video to be on for you and any participants. There's different types of audio, like I think we covered this earlier. For interview type shows, you'll be using primarily computer audio. You can use telephone audio or a combination of both of them. If it's telephone and computer audio, then in your meeting invitation, there will be a telephone number that participants can call to join the meeting. There are other options like allowing participants to join before you do. I'll go through some of the ones that I think are kind of pertinent. Requiring passwords when scheduling new meetings. For your show, I don't think this is necessary. If you're doing a show that involves a lot of people and you want a little bit of extra security, then requiring a password is a good idea. There are some chat functions. You can prevent participants from saving chats if you would like. You can allow meeting participants to have private chats. I don't think this is a good idea for large meetings. This is good to have on, so it's kind of like a doorbell when people enter the meeting, and you can have it be heard only by you or by all participants. There's also a file transfer option, so you can send files through the chat bar, the sidebar. Okay, so next one, screen sharing. So you can determine whether you want to be the only one who can share content. If you're inviting someone to share what's on their computer, you can have all participants share their screens. Annotation. So these are the annotation tools to add information to a shared screen. There's a function called whiteboard. You can enable or disable the remote control feature. So if someone shares their screen and you have this feature turned on, then you can control their computer. And then there's some other security things, like if you've removed someone, You can either allow or not allow participants who've been removed to rejoin the meeting. I think it's a good idea to allow folks to rename themselves once they're in the meeting. There's also something called breakout rooms, which I'm not sure are very pertinent to recording shows, but basically you can split large groups of participants into smaller groups, smaller rooms that you can hop around into. There's closed captioning. Virtual background. Unfortunately, my computer is not strong enough to do a virtual background, but many computers and iPads and devices allow you to swap out whatever's behind you with an image. The other function I wanted to show you is the waiting room. This is a good security feature where instead of automatically adding participants to the meeting, they are kind of staged in the waiting room, and then you can admit them one by one or admit them all at the same time. So that's another security feature. And then there's email notification, other settings. The next setting I want to show you is recording. With a free account, you can record locally, which means recording to your computer. You can turn it off if you don't want to do that. The host can give your participants the permission to record whatever is on the screen to their computers. You can have an automatic recording. As soon as you start the meeting, it starts recording. There's also something called the recording disclaimer, where it shows a customized message to participants before a recording starts. So there are a lot of account settings that you should check out on the Zoom website, and these settings can help make your meetings more secure and manage what your participants can and can't do in the meeting. Of course, before you start recording, you'll want to have some pre-production done on your show. And I'll go into a little bit more depth on how I did pre-production for the show that I did on Tanika. But some things to think about are audio. Are you in a good spot to record? Are there any audio issues? Do you have any things that might be distracting going on in the background, like other conversations, or is the TV on? Lighting. Where is your light source? It's good to be well lit, and that can either be artificially, like through using a lamp, or also, looking at where your windows are and positioning your laptop or your camera in a way that uh, lights your face well. And then finally, think about the background. Make sure that the background is neutral, it's not distracting. As I said before, the background that I'm sitting in currently is not the best background for a recording. I'm in the basement, there are boxes in the background, it's kind of visually distracting. So just something to keep in mind. Also, some other questions to think about, like, what is your show about? Is it an interview? Are you showing anything? Do you have graphics? Do you have videos that you can be playing? I mentioned before, I use Google Slideshow a lot. You can also use PowerPoint or create a PDF show that is in full screen. These are all visual elements that you can add to your show as you're recording. Okay, when you're ready to record your show, there are a few things that you should do, and I'm sure you'll all think of other things to do before you actually hit record, but a few things to do before recording your show. First thing is you want to determine where your file is going to be located once you finish recording. So to do that, we'll go in here and go to video settings, go to recording, and then store my recordings at, choose a new location, and I think I'll choose that location. So now I know that my recordings will go to that folder. The next thing that you'll want to do is test your audio and video feed. Make sure everything sounds and looks okay. So again, to do that, go to audio settings. You can test the speaker. And then also test the microphone. Test, test, test. This is a mic check. Looks like my mic is looking good. Microphone. Test, test, test. This is a mic check. Okay. And video looks okay. You know, I might want to raise it up a little bit or put it on some books. Actually, this is not a really good spot for recording a show. But and then the other thing that you want to do before you hit record is you want your graphics and presentation queued up. So anything that you'll be sharing during your show, and you might not necessarily need to have anything queued up if you aren't sharing anything, or if you're going to be doing some editing after you record, if you want to bring in the files separately to edit in Premiere or another video editing software. But what you'll want to do is make sure you have any slides. Like I use Google Slides a lot. This is a presentation for a different show that actually Sean Lilly's doing called BFREE During Quarantine, and he uses it for titles. So what you want to do is you just present full screen, put it on the first slide, and then test it to make sure it looks okay. All right, here it is. Okay, there we go. So that's looking okay. So maybe you want to start your show with that slide and say, "Welcome to Be Free During Quarantine. My name is Sean Lilly, and today we're going to be talking to Florette Vassall, who's a community producer." If you don't want to share a slideshow, then maybe it's a bunch of pictures from your photo app, then just make sure that that's all queued up and you have whatever photos you need set up there. This is my daughter jumping into the ball pit. Anyway, so once you have all that ready and you have your guests ready, then you are ready to record. So again, to record, you just hit the record button. You'll see a little recording sign right here, and you can pause the recording and resume, or once you're finished you can stop the recording. You won't have access to the file until you leave the meeting, so I'm going to end the meeting, and then you'll see that the meeting recording will be converted to an MP4 that can then be uploaded or can be brought into a video editing software. And here it is. So this is what it looks like. You'll see now I'd like to kind of walk you through the process that I went through when I recorded my first Zoom pilot. So this was with Tanika Williams, and it was a really fun and interesting way to use Zoom to create a show. It wasn't perfect. There were some things that I wish had gone a little better, but for the most part, it was a pretty smooth process. And I will share the link to the final video in the description below this video. So the first thing I did was I created a short slideshow. I went to Tanika's website. She had actually sent me her intro so I could read that straight from the slideshow. And I found some pictures of work that she had done. So and a piece that I was going to use as a roll-in. I also added some slides on other programs that she's in, like the Black Box filmmaking program, and I had a slide on just a basic overview question that I was gonna ask her. It ended up being her and her partner Shahkeem, and so I spent about 30 minutes on the slideshow, and then I organized a quick meeting with them to review and practice the intro, and I showed them what I was going to share through Zoom. So we all logged into Zoom together, and they were kind of fixing some audio things and fixing the lighting so it looked a certain way. And actually, their setup looked a lot better than my setup. So we did a quick rehearsal of the intro and the outro. So, I'm a firm believer of starting and ending strong. So the intro slide was their names, and then I had an outro just to practice what I was going to say in the beginning and at the end of the show. And then I said, okay, we're going to record. I shared my screen, so I basically just presented, and then I shared my screen here, and I started recording. And I said, and unfortunately, as you'll see in the video, the little thumbnail of me covered up the free speech logo. I think I realized that later on. I moved this down or something. So we recorded the show. I read their bios, and then went back and forth between what I was showing on the Google slideshow and the video itself. And we had a really nice conversation. The conversation lasted about 25 or 26 minutes. And then I did the outro and hit stop, and I had the show. So let's take a quick look at a couple of minutes of the show just to give you an idea. Hello, my name is Sky McLeod, and I'm really excited to be talking with Tanika and Shahkeem Williams today. The name of our show today is called Wisdom from Life and Community. So this work, Grandma's Vanity, can you talk a little bit about it and what inspired you to make this work of art?
Yes. So Grandma's Vanity was an installation that accompanied a chapel service looking at the ways in which Black women retain and share information. And these are the products that we saw growing up. And just thinking about how important the lesson of self-care and beautification is, particularly when it comes down to survival.
I want to play first, and then maybe we can talk a little bit.
Wisdom comes from a stubborn personality that sometimes learns the hard way. Wisdom from a free spirit, wisdom from happiness, wisdom from pain and loss, wisdom from life.
So in the background, there was a woman working with some kale and some collard greens. So she was literally preparing a garden bed. And we have just started gardening, right? So I'll let you talk about gardening as that moment of an exchange of wisdom.
Knowing how to eat, how to take care of ourselves, and what herbs to take for different type of ailments that we may suffer. You know, that is what we that's the gift, that's the wisdom that we should cherish.
I've been gardening with my little girls. We have a little backyard, and I know that there's something really therapeutic about putting your hands in the soil and growing something, and I really relate to that, and there's something very therapeutic both for me and my kids, and the transmission of this knowledge of something that's really forgotten now when you're living in a city and you go to the store and you get.
I'm glad you showed us that image.
That's so heartwarming.
It's very heartwarming because the whole time we were in the backyard the last couple of days, preparing for Good Friday to plant. We're going to plant tomorrow. My daughter, who is 5 turning 6.
So it was a really easy setup, very simple, and you can watch it, and it's not super technical, but I think it's a nice conversation. And then of course the last step is I reached out to the programming department. I filled out an application for a special, and we programmed the special to air on our networks. So that is how the Tanika Williams pilot went down, and I'm sure you will have other things, other workflows and processes that work better. I wish I had a better microphone. There are pretty high quality condenser microphones that you can look at on the B&H website or on Amazon to really improve your audio quality. There are also different things that you can do to enhance your video. Get a higher quality HD webcam, for example. Buy a light that you can use to light your face. There's actually I don't know if you can see, there's a lamp that I'm using to illuminate my face now. So just little production things. And then of course if you are an editor, you can take all of the footage that you record in Zoom and add titles, graphics, motion graphics, other roll-ins, things like that. So this is just a starting point. I hope you learned a little bit on how to produce your show in Zoom. And if you have any suggestions or uh, tips or techniques that you want to share with me, please do. I would love to hear them. And I will look forward to seeing your shows on our channels. All right, take care.